to the Cripple Chronicles. My name is Becca and I am your host. I feel like I should apologise a wee bit. I have taken a few weeks off of posting. It wasn't really an intentional break, but it was definitely a well needed one. The things I'm going to cover in today's episode kind of explain where my head has been at in the past few weeks. Simba's coming up to join us, I think. Are you coming up here? Are you going to say hi? Come on. You can't bop the microphone. Are you going to sit down? You're delaying my recording here. So we have Simba joining me for the podcast today. Hopefully he chooses to sit nice. Maybe he'll meow along and agree with some of my points. Anyway, what I was saying is this week's episode, I'm going to kind of cover and explain where my head's been at in the past few weeks. And it is kind of following on from previous episodes where I had done little updates of how I had been getting on, and it's these kind of feelings that have been looming for months, really. I've mentioned it previously in episodes. In the time that I haven't been posting, I had my year amputation anniversary, which I really wanted to chat about today. And I have some bullet points written down for this episode, but if I'm honest, I'm not sure how long it's going to be. It could be 15 minutes or 50 minutes, but something is better than nothing. And I'm really excited to just kind of get back into it and back into the routine of doing the podcast. Before I start, I am going to go over the usual bits and pieces. Before I start, I am going to go over the usual bits and pieces. TikTok and Instagram, please follow that at Cripple Chronicles Pod. If you're listening on Spotify, please rate and review. I did see something the other day that you can now apparently leave comments on Spotify. So if you can and you want to try that out, leave me a wee comment. Tell me what you think about this episode. If you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like the video. It helps the channel. Leave a wee comment about your thoughts. If there is anything you would like to get in contact with me about, please send me an email to cripplecchroniclespod@gmail.com, and let's get into this episode of the Cripple Chronicles. I have definitely got out of the routine of podcasts. When I started, I was really determined that I was going to have like a bank of a few weeks' episodes. I recorded a few in advance, and it was going well for that maybe first month, and then I missed a couple of weeks of recording and I used those backup episodes, and then I never really quite updated that bank of episodes that I had. Therefore, these few weeks when I've had to take some time off, I've then not really had anything to post. And then coming back to it, I feel like I've been putting myself under a lot of pressure to post, and feeling like I need to do it is something that I really struggle with. I have mentioned it in previous episodes, but there has been a big feeling recently that the things that I want to say aren't important, or that I should just stay quiet. I can acknowledge that deep down I know that these things aren't true because I have proof of that. I have proof that the things that I do say, even when it's not intentional, seem to have a good impact on people. But I guess that I spend a lot of my life trying to shrink myself down, blend into the background, not draw too much attention to myself. I think when I'm really struggling, it's easy to revert back to those places of hiding myself away from the world. but that's not something that I need to do. So I was really wanting to sit down and record something. And like I said, I was getting in my own head and putting a massive amount of pressure on myself, not recording for a few weeks, missing uploads, feeling like I had to sit and write a script or bullet points and having all of these thoughts in my head and not quite being able to formulate them into something to put down. And then when I'm recording, I record the video portions on my phone. I usually have it plugged in whilst I'm doing that to make sure that there's enough battery in my phone. However, the cable that I was using had broke, so that was something where I was like, okay, well, I guess I can't record because I've not got a cable that's long enough for my phone. And even if I was to use a different cable, whereabouts would I set myself up so that I'm able to sit comfortably and also have my phone charging? And it was just all of these things that were really overwhelming me, just a build up of a lot of it that I'd sat a few days ago and I really wanted to get something written down and record the podcast and hopefully get it out this Tuesday that's coming. But instead, I cried and then I napped for 4 hours because I was just so exhausted by all of it. And then I just woke up, and the next day, I decided to do some painting and that I would come back to it. And then yesterday I did come back to and I managed to write down some bullet points, but after I had done that, my head was really sore and I knew that I needed some sleep and my body really needed the rest. So I did that instead of pushing myself to record an episode. So although I haven't been recording things and keeping on top of stuff with the podcast when it's something that I really enjoy doing, and I know in myself that when I'm struggling, being able to sit and just openly talk about what's going on is really helpful for me. And I just want to be able to embrace that. However, I was just kind of I spent a lot of time just feeling like I was paralysed in my bed, scrolling through social media and playing little games on my phone and watching YouTube, all the while thinking that there's all of these things that I should be doing or that I need to be doing. And it was just, I got myself into this just cycle of negativity, really going round and round in these circles. But I'm here today, and that's what's important. I'm not holding myself to that unrealistic standard that I can sit and record, edit, master, subtitle, and upload this for consumption within the next 2 days. Like, that just isn't possible. And even if it was possible, it's not something that's sustainable and it's something that's probably going to burn me out for a few days. Therefore, it's just not worth it. I might as well take the time and enjoy doing it instead of rushing to do something and feeling like the next episode's going to be impacted by that. Anyway, that was definitely a lot more than I had planned to say for that bullet point, but here we are. I feel like I said in the introduction that this was maybe going to be 15 minutes or 50 minutes, but from the way that this is going already, I think it's probably going to be more than 50 minutes, to be honest. So I hope you're buckled in for a good listening. Maybe if you're driving, you've got somewhere nice to go and I'm keeping you some company, and I love that idea. Me kind of getting stuck in this repetitive cycle of thinking was only kind of really the last week or so. So what's kind of been going on, one of the main topics that I wanted to touch on that I had already mentioned in the introduction was I celebrated the 1 year anniversary of the amputation. I have spoke about the anniversaries of the accident in the past and how I've struggled with those anniversaries. It was getting another year further away from the accident. I spent that time still just really sad and angry and struggling to see how I could go forward with my life in those moments. That was kind of really up until the last anniversary. every year that it came round, I was somehow no further forward than when I had the accident. But last year it was different because I had my leg amputated, but I was still really kind of coming to terms with that at the time. This anniversary was different for me. I made the conscious decision that I didn't want to spend the day in that anger and sadness. I wanted to show myself that I can make room for those emotions, but still have somewhat of an enjoyable day for myself. Before I got my leg chopped off last year, I had an amputation celebration in the hospital where my pals and my gran came up to the hospital with banners and party hats and glow sticks and cake. And it was such a lovely little thing to do. Like, I think it's something that definitely isn't usual, but it should be. Like, it made those hard conversations a lot easier because it was hard to take things seriously when you're sitting talking to somebody with glow stick glasses on and a party hat. Like, it just made the heavier things feel a bit lighter. So this year I had thought that maybe I would repeat that. It worked last year, didn't it? So maybe I should just kind of stick what I know and repeat that pattern. And I thought about maybe having some people over the weekend before the anniversary because the anniversary was on a Monday, having that amputation celebration 2.0. But I realised that if I did that, that I was probably still going to be alone to face the anniversary. Before it got to that, Eleanor had came up to visit from Leeds and we had been planning what we were going to do the few days that she was in Scotland. We were going to try and go to the safari park and take some pictures outside and enjoy nature and see some animals because when I went down to Leeds last time, we went to a mini zoo and it was honestly so much fun. Like, I laughed so much. I'll put the wee video in of when we went through like the butterfly house. Although I have a butterfly tattooed on my arm, I think I've already said this, but like I'm actually quite scared of butterflies. I'm not very good with like bugs that fly. I don't like them being near me. I don't want them to land on me. It just really kind of gives me the ick. And Eleanor is pretty much the same. So there was just loads of butterflies flying around this bit, and we sped run it basically where Eleanor just took the back of my chair and we were like, she was running with me around this bit, and it was so much fun. And it was only kind of the end of it where I was like, oh my gosh, I need to take my phone out and record this and capture this moment because it was just so much fun. And I thought going to the safari park or something like that, that's probably going to be really enjoyable. However, when Eleanor came up, I was struggling a lot with pain. And when she came over, she had said to me, like, she could see it in me that I was just really struggling with it. It was actually really important that we just spent time together. It wasn't what we did or what we got up to. Like, we could go to the safari park at any time. So we decided that we would just go to the shop and get some food and go and sit by the loch for a wee bit. This was a good plan in principle, however, we didn't account for all of the bugs and flying ants that were about, so we lasted probably about 10-15 minutes with me and Eleanor thinking that there was things crawling on us and just get enough time to take a wee video with my number one balloon that I got to celebrate for being a year of an anniversary. Let me try that one again. The balloon, the number, geez, oh, that's really throwing me off. We took a video with the number one balloon that I got to celebrate a year of being an amputee, and we were going to take some pictures, but we just took the video to get some screenshots from. We then headed back to the Airbnb that Eleanor and Jonathan were staying in, which was in like a farm. It was just kind of in the middle of the country again, sitting out in nature. We sat in the back garden and enjoyed the food that we were going to sit and eat by the loch. And then we just sat and chilled out and watched YouTube. It wasn't what we had planned to do initially, but like I had said, it was just about enjoying spending time together. I always feel like that really fills up my cup, which had been feeling empty. During the time that we were planning what we were going to do when Eleanor was coming up, we decided that we were going to have a little photo shoot because since getting my leg amputated, I had always kind of said when it got to the year anniversary that I wanted to have a boudoir shoot because when I had the frame on, I felt the worst that I had about my body. But even before I had the accident, I hated seeing myself naked. I would avoid looking at myself in mirrors when I didn't have clothes on. And even if I caught myself, it made me want to burst into tears. Since amputation, I have really leaned into accepting my body and what it's got me through. I really feel like that deserves to be celebrated. I had so much fun. I never thought it was that possible to feel that comfortable, half naked in front of my friend with her taking photos of me. We laughed until we both nearly passed out, and it was just so good for my soul. It was something that I couldn't have seen myself ever doing. I always felt like a bit of an alien in my own body. Who would have known that it would have taken me nearly dying, breaking both of my legs, and then getting one of them chopped off to find that within me? But I do have a lot of gratitude for Eleanor in this scenario, as she is someone who is very, very body confident. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Like a lot of self love, like body positivity, and she's really helped me in that journey to loving myself a bit more by just being her. Like that shit rubs off on people, that energy is contagious. I'm just so glad that we did this wee thing together. It really added to that feeling of celebration. Like I'm so sad that things had to be this way. I'm so angry at the world that it had to be me, that I couldn't have just carried on and seen where my life went before all of this. I didn't have the chance to see what my life would have maybe looked like with a fused leg. This was the only outcome, and although all of those feelings are really heavy sometimes, I know that it's okay for me to put that weight down for a little while and lean into the good. Try and balance those scales a little bit between the negatives and the positives. If you would like to see some of the photos that me and Eleanor took together, I have posted them today on Instagram over at Cripple Chronicles Pod. I'm going to go on to talking about what I actually got up to for the anniversary, and in a few days' time, I'm also going to be posting the photos from that little adventure. So you should definitely give it a follow and keep your eyes peeled for those photos if you're interested and seeing the things that I get up to outside of the podcast. I decided against having the amputation celebration 2.0, and it was something that came from the feelings that I had after doing the photo shoot. I mentioned that when I had the frame on, I felt the worst about my body. For the 2.5 years that I had the frame on, there was rarely a time where I was naked. I lost weight in hospital, but I just felt that everything about me looked off. I could only really wear nighties, skirts, and some dresses. Even when I wore these things, I had to accept that there was going to be holes put in them from the frame and the pins that were sticking out. I thought that being disabled made me undesirable, less wanted, less worthy. And these are things that I know that aren't true, but they're feelings that were very, very real at the time. And I say that at the time because that's not how I think or how I feel now. Over the past year, I feel like I have slowly been finding myself. I know who I am at the core of everything, but this has been a massive adjustment, and through so much of my life, I've been running, I've been feeling like I'm in survival mode, and this is the first time where I've actually had time in my life to sit and figure out who I am outside of all of those things. I've always had this deep rooted feeling that I'm not enough. I've had times in my life where I've been shown that, and some of those run really, really deep. And being disabled, I guess that's added to that fear that it comes to that feeling where I'm between not being enough and simultaneously being too much. And this is something that I've been trying to work on for years, even before I had the accident. I have a ring that I wear on my thumb that I saw in an advert about 6 years ago, and it was from a collection that was I am affirmations, and it has enough engraved in it. And I wear this ring every single day, and I have done for the last 6 years. I have a tattoo on the top of my arm that is a love heart that says, "You are enough," because I need to remind myself of that. I think that I'm at a point where, at the core of it, I know that I'm enough for myself. That's the most important thing at the end of the day. So I decided that for the anniversary of the amputation that I was going to have a little solo trip, an adventure, preferably somewhere near the water, and just enjoy my own company and nature, and celebrate the fact that a year ago with the frame on, I wouldn't have been able to do this kind of thing alone. But I also wanted to give myself the room for the emotions that come along with this journey of recovery. On Monday, the 28th of August, I went to Burnt Island in Fife. Thankfully, I was talking to my cleaner Donna the week before, as she usually comes in to clean for me on a Monday, and I'd said like, "Oh, I'm not going to be here next week. I'm going on a little adventure. I'm going to Burntisland in Fife." And she was like, "Where?" And I was like, "Burntisland." And she was like, "Becca, it's Burnt Island." And I was like, "No, because it's all one word, therefore it's Burntisland." And she was like, "I've got a friend that stays in Fife, it's Burnt Island." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And I'm so glad that she pointed it out to me beforehand, because can you imagine I got on the train and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm just getting off at Burntisland," and they would be like, what?" And I also thought that usually the wee woman that announces places on the train, she doesn't always get it right. So I had my fingers crossed that when I was on that train that she was going to validate me and she was going to say Burntisland, but unfortunately she said it correct and said Burnt Island. So it was just me left feeling like a bit of a fanny. However, it was within the confines of my pals and wasn't to any strangers. So I'll take that one, to be honest. That's a good thing instead of embarrassing myself in front of people that I don't know. I chose to go to Burnt Island because this was meant to be like a 2.5 hour journey, but it ended up being a bit longer than that. I got on the bus in the morning and it was meant to get me into Glasgow with about half an hour to spare between me getting off of the bus and the train leaving. And I thought, that's perfect. It'll take me like 5-10 minutes to get to the train station, maybe 15. That gives me plenty of time to get to the station, get my my help to get on and be sorted for the train leaving. However, the bus was late. Every single set of traffic lights we seemed to hit was a red light. So by the time we got into town, I only had about 15 minutes to get to the train station. And I actually felt kind of bad because I had wheeled myself up a wee bit and had stopped for a breather. And there was a homeless guy next to me, and I was just kind of sitting trying to collect myself, and he was trying to talk to me, and he was like, oh, I was in a wheelchair 4 years ago when I broke my leg. And I was like, I'm really sorry, mate, like I need to go, I've got a train to catch. And I felt bad because I feel like he probably gets a lot of people that say that to him that aren't really being genuine because they don't really want to speak to him. But it wasn't that. I was literally just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss this train. And I'd already booked assistance, so I was really worried that if I missed that train, then I wouldn't have assistance for the next train. Going to Burnt Island, only one of the platforms is accessible, so that meant when I was on the way there, I had to go to Kirkcaldy and then change platforms and go back the way so that I could get off at the platform that was accessible and had step-free access. So I was really worried that if I didn't get on this train, that those things weren't going to be in place and I was going to be a bit gubbed. However, I got there on time. I was getting a wee bit irked off because there was a guy that just seemed to keep putting his suitcase in front of me and blocking my way. And I'm like, oh my God, pay attention to what you're doing, please. I got to the platform, and then I'm a bit confused by something that happened because, like I'd said, I booked assistance for the trains through the passenger assist app. I tend to try and do this every time that I'm travelling on the train where I've got notice, because I get a lot of anxiety just turning up to the station and asking for assistance because I'm really worried that they won't help me. I know it's kind of their job to help me and that wouldn't exactly happen, but that just takes away a bit of the anxiety if I've already got it booked beforehand. And we went up the platform to where the wheelchair carriage was. What confuses me is that for me to get on the train, a guy in a power chair got off with his family and all of this luggage and started heading down the platform, which I thought initially, oh, there's not enough room, and because I've booked it, this is my space. However, what confused me is when I got on the train, there was two wheelchair spaces, so there was enough room for the both of us. I'm not really sure if there was another wheelchair carriage kinda down further back in the train or what had happened, but that kind of really confused me because I was like, surely we should have both been able to travel. And that kind of, it left me with a bit of a guilty feeling because I almost felt as if I had taken somebody's space even though I'd booked it, if that makes any sense. Like I said, there wasn't access at the platform going inbound to Burnt Island, so I had to go to Kirkcaldy, train change platforms, and then get on the train back. However, getting to Kirkcaldy, there was only like 4 minutes between my train getting in and the other train leaving, and I had to go down the lift, across, up the lift. So by the time I got back onto the platform, the train for me to go to Burnt Island was just pulling out of the station, which meant I then had a 40-minute wait, which added to my journey time, but it kind of worked out pretty well because I needed to pee. So I used the disabled toilet in the station and then just sat and chilled until the train came. I was finally on the train to Burnt Island. I had decided that this trip was because I wanted to go to the beach, I wanted to be near the water. So I decided that I would probably do that first and then I would get some food before I was heading home. So I just put into Google Maps kind of how to get to the beach. The directions that it gave me, both routes were kind of quite hilly, quite a lot of inclines. So I took the long way round, which took me onto the main street. And by the time I get round there, damn my small bladder, I was starting to need to pee again. And in this, I was like, oh, that's really lucky. I actually spotted a food place that I'd seen that I wanted to try out, which was called Burger Island. So I went in there in the hopes that I would be able to get some food and they would have an accessible toilet. I did get some really tasty food, however, they didn't have a table inside, they didn't have a customer toilet. So I sat outside and enjoyed my chips, cheese, and bacon and some mozzarella sticks, which really hit the spot. But during that, I was just thinking the fact that I had to go to the toilet and trying to kind of compartmentalize that, and my wee tummy is too small that I just couldn't finish the portion that was in front of me. I then made my way down to the links, which is just like two big patches of grass. Maybe more than two patches of grass, but it's just a big grass area, and usually they have like a fairground going on, which I was actually really excited because I wanted to just kind of was like, oh, that adds something to the experience, but I was a bit late. They had already taken like the fairground away. The other thing that I was excited about was one of my friends had told me that there was like a witchy shop in Burnt Island. So I was excited to visit that. However, it shut on a Monday, which typical, of course it is. So I got to the links and thankfully they had an accessible toilet. So I tended to my needs and then I took myself down towards the beach. I got a bit lost and I partly blame an old man that was trying to help me in kind of air quotation marks. I was going backwards up the hill as I came out of the tunnel to get towards the beach, as it was quite a steep incline. And I find with my wheelchair it is a lot easier to go backwards up hills than it is to go forwards, because going forwards, I've got little stabilizers on the back of my chair, but I feel like my weight kind of tips backwards and I end up trailing those stabilizers. Whereas if I'm going backwards, I've not really got that problem, and I can use my meat leg, which I stole off of an Instagram creator, Footless Joe, that I follow, because meat leg is just such a good term for my remaining leg. Anyway, I use my meat leg to kind of also give me that push backwards when I'm going up the hill. I was doing this, I was having no issues, listening to my music, just getting on with my day. This wee guy's coming towards me, he's easily in his 70s or his 80s, walking while walking stick, and tell me to slow down because he would help me. Said like, no, thank you, I'm totally fine. And then he said that all us women are the same, wanting our independence. Like, odd take, but okay. He then asked me where I was going, and I just said that I was following the path, and he was like, oh, me too. He then told me again, like, to slow down and he would give me a push, and I was like, I've already said I'm fine. I was then going ahead and he made a comment like, wow, look at you go, like, you're quite good at that. Like, of course I am. I kind of have to be, like, this is how I get about and live my life. Like, maybe you've not seen a lot of people independently in wheelchairs before in your 70 or 80 years of living, but I don't really need that comment. It's not as if it was like a comment in a way of like, oh my god, you're doing so well. Like, it just seemed a bit condescending because he's already insinuated 2 times that he thinks that I need help. He then asked me if I was okay when I was sitting taking a breather, and I was like, yep, I'm fine, I'm just having a wee break. And again, he was like, where are you going? And I was like, I'm just out a walk. And he was like, are you sure that you're okay being here on your own? Like, do you not need any help? And I was like, by this point, I was getting really fed up of the fact that I knew that he didn't think that I was capable. And I was like, look, I would not be out here and enjoying time on my own if I wasn't capable to be out here on my own. And he was just like, okay, fair enough. I hadn't thought of it like that, and continued to walk on. Like, thankfully, goodbye. Anyway, in this, I got confused because I'd followed the path round and then it didn't quite seem like there was another path. There was like a leisure centre and a car park. To the side of it, there was a skate park. So I decided to just kind of go through the skate park, and I ended up kind of sitting on a patch of grass which had a fence, and then down below was like the concrete walkway of the beach, and then down again was the beach. And I realised that to get to the concrete walkway, I could have gone back and followed that path and gone through the car park and round, but it was a long way to go round, and I couldn't really be bothered, and I was actually pretty content with where I was at in my wee spot that I'd already found. I sat there for a good couple of hours. Initially, I had my headphones on and I was listening to music, but I took out my journal and started journaling, and I realised that I should be listening to everything that's going on around me and be more present in that moment, taking in all of the sounds and just little reminders of life and being alive. I took that time to really kind of think about the last year in my life, the things that I've achieved, and the fact that I went on this little adventure on my own. Like, I did that shit. I'm here and I'm alive. I saw something when I'd got home on one of the amputee support groups that I'm in, and it was a woman that had her anniversary, or in this group, I guess they like to call it an ampuversary, or maybe that's like a kind of common term in the community. And she'd kind of made a post that she was sad because she'd posted about this anniversary and it seemed to not really get acknowledged. And then later on, I'd seen it the next day, but there was a post from a guy basically saying that he really didn't understand why people celebrate amputation, and his wasn't a choice, it was to save his life, and he died twice whilst he was on the table, and he doesn't really get a lot of support from the state, and he really sees no point in celebrating. And reading that initially, I did get a bit of a pang of like, oh, should I not be celebrating this? Like, is this something that is the general consensus within the community? Like, it's not something that should be celebrated. But when I looked at the comments, it was flooded with people that were on the same boat as me. I didn't spend that Monday celebrating the fact that I had had my leg amputated, but more so the life that I have been able to have in the past year, especially compared to the anniversaries of the accident and everything that I went through with the frame on. But I think that initial feeling, that pang of like, oh, should I not be celebrating this? Like, I hate to think that that's what that wee woman that had made the post kind of saying, like, it hadn't really got acknowledged. I would hate to think what she felt like in that moment, because she was just wanting people to join in and have that bit of positivity that, like, damn, I've had a limb amputated, but I've managed to survive for the last year, and that really is something that deserves to be celebrated. Before I finish telling you about my day on the 28th spent celebrating, I wanted to add this in here as I feel like it follows on quite well. Nearly a year ago, I was discharged from orthopaedics after being a patient for nearly 3 years, 10 surgeries, and a lot of clinic appointments, and many, many months of hospital stays. And at this last appointment, it was very wholesome. I would say that me and my surgeon built a really good therapeutic relationship. I got a massive card to say thank you, to kind of show a little bit of the gratitude that I had, but whilst writing that card, I also put a wee sneaky, like, look, if you ever want somebody for mental health support on your team, like, hit me up, you know where I am, like, I'll happily do the job. I got him this card, and he had said that although he would like to keep seeing me to hear about my progress, there was no clinical need to keep pulling me in for appointments. Therefore, I was going to be discharged. At this appointment, he had asked me if I would write to them and let them know how I was getting on, and had said that if it wasn't unprofessional, that he would give me a hug. And I was like, well, if I ask you for a hug, does that count as being unprofessional? Because like I would really like that hug. And it gave me it, and I just kind of said thank you, and he was like, look, I'm gonna get out of here, but before I start crying. That was really nice, and I can tell how much he genuinely cares about his patients. The reason that I'm bringing this up is because I decided that on the anniversary I was going to write to him. I wanted to read what I said and also the response, because I think it made my day so much better to read that when I got home. So my email was, it's been a year since the big chop, and I just wanted to drop you an email to let you know of the positive changes in the last year. After talking about it since the accident, I finally got back to driving. I was signed off fit to drive a few months ago and should hopefully have my adapted car in the next few months. I started a podcast at the start of the year, and I was talking about the frames, disability, and mental health. It's mostly for me, but it's already made some people who felt alone in their frame journeys feel less alone. I was becoming a pro at walking again with my prosthetic. However, I've been having a lot of issues with my socket fitting. I've been without a prosthetic for a few months and had to be very reliant on my wheelchair, and it's definitely not as scary as when I initially thought this might be my life forever. I should be getting my new leg in a couple of weeks though, and getting back on track to hopefully get to the top of that Monroe. The bend in my knee has significantly improved. I think when I had my last appointment with you, it was maybe at 40 degrees, and I have been able to increase that to 80 degrees. To celebrate today, I am heading out on a solo adventure to the beach, to be in nature and just take stock of the things that I am grateful for in life. Because this time last year, geez, I didn't think this was going to get to me, but it appears it is. I just need to take a minute. Because this time last year, doing something like this wasn't possible for me. I am still healing from the aftermath of my accident and learning how to live in the body that I am in now. I could never have imagined my life to be what it's like now. Some days are still a struggle, but I don't think it's ever going to be as hard as it was with the frame, and that's a win. I wouldn't change any of how it all unfolded. And we might not have been able to save my leg, but you and the team saved my life, and there will always be immense gratitude for that. I hope you and the team are keeping well. All the best, Becca. Oh, reading that out got me a lot more than I thought it would. I've read it to a few of my pals, and it didn't get me that much, but I think it just hit me a bit harder today. And the response to this email was, hi Becca, I'm really glad that you're getting on well. The fact that you've taken time to update me means a huge amount. All is well on my side. I'm now one of 3 surgeons doing what I do, with a 4th starting soon. It will hopefully mean that we can look after more patients. Cheers. This made my day better, because when I was getting treated, my surgeon was one of the only surgeons in Scotland who did the operations for the frames. I remember going to the clinic appointments and him trying to see 40 to 60 patients in like 5 hours, having him turn up in my hospital room at like 6 o'clock in the morning for the morning rounds because he couldn't sleep and he just wanted to get to work. I really wish that things had worked out with a frame. I wouldn't have spent so long trying if that wasn't true. Although at the start of last year, I started contemplating amputation, I never really wanted it to come to that point. But I've seen a lot of positive recovery stories with the frames where people have gone back to pretty much the lives they had before, if not better, and it may have taken years, but I really do believe that they are a good tool to support people who have had severe limb damage to not have to go down the route of amputation. And although it is a really rough process, it does bring me happiness to know that more people get that chance, they get that choice of service, and I hope that makes sense because I can't quite think how to word it properly. Anyway, now that I've finished crying and kind of composed myself a little bit, let's get back to my little solo adventure. I kinda wanted to challenge my anxiety as I was taking quite a few photos, and I wanted to have a photo taken of me kind of in front of the view. And I was going to ask somebody, but nobody really came by. And even when there was people nearby, I still found myself being that kind of way where I was trying to pretend that I wasn't taking a photo because I was just being a bit of a shite bag, to be honest. Heading back to the train station was definitely a challenge. It was already about 4 p.m. and I'd been out the house since like 10:30 in the morning. Already wheeled myself to the beach, and I really should have went back the way that I came. But thinking about it, although the incline wasn't as steep, I think going back the way I came, it was a pretty gradual incline that would have fucked me up, but the steepness of the inclines me that I was going back to the train station with really, really gubbed me, to be honest. But I got myself in the zone and I was reversing myself up this like mammoth of a hill with my headphones on, and there was teenagers coming towards me, and the guy asked if I needed a hand, and I'd thought at this point, like, I'm 3/4 of the way up this hill, like, I've put in a good shift, like, I know realistically that I could get to the top of this hill, but I'm not gonna let my pride get in the way here, and I'm gonna accept the help that's been offered to me. Damn, am I glad that I accepted that help, because I got to the top of the hill and turned the corner, and of course, when we turned round, it was more of an incline up the way. So I was so glad that I had these three wee teenagers like taking turns to push me whilst I'm also helping them, giving some propelling forward with my arms, but it's not having to be as much as if I was getting myself up that hill on my own. They got me to the top of the hill, and the train station was just kinda down to the left, so said kinda, "Thanks very much, cheers for your help, I really appreciate it." Bit of the station that was just down to the left was the inaccessible platform with the stairs, so I then had to go down a street that I had clocked when I had came off the train initially, and it was one of the streets that I was talking about that was a pretty steep incline. Coming down this hill was a wee bit scary, to be honest, because it was quite steep. I had my gloves on that have like leather in them, which really helps me grip my wheels and control my speed. So when I'm going down hills, like, I'm not really anxious that I'm going to lose my grip or anything like that. However, this street was quite narrow, there wasn't any pavement, so I was having to go down on the road and just kind of sticking to the sides and really having my fingers crossed that no car was going to come like speeding up or down this street, which thankfully when I was making my way down it, nobody came there, but I just had to kind of keep my wits about me. I got to the station in plenty of time to head back home, and initially I was going to get the train to Glasgow and then get the bus home because I'm so used to just getting the bus. It stops not far from my house. However, when I get off, I then need to go up a hill to get to my street, and then my street is also up a hill. And after all of the stuff that I had already done during the day, I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to get the train all the way, and then when I get to the train station, I'll get a taxi. Just went home and was thinking how I had such a nice day. Just kind of being like, damn, I did that. Like, I went out and I did that. Like, I wheeled myself over a mile in my chair. I travelled for like 6 hours. I did that stuff and I only got help once from some teenagers, which I really needed, but I would have been able to do it on my own, and that is such a powerful feeling for myself, just proving to myself that I can do these things when I put my mind to it. I can make something work. But I think that is where I'm gonna end it for today. I have been rambling on for quite a while. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cripple Chronicles. I am very glad that you have joined me to celebrate this journey of the last year of me being the baddest bitch amputee that I am. I am so grateful to the people that listen to this podcast, that send me nice messages about it, that give me the reminders of why I should keep going with it. And it is something that I really enjoy. So thank you for your patience in this time. I'm not going to say that there's going to be an episode in a few weeks' time. I would like to hope that there is, but for now, I think I'm accepting a little bit of inconsistency in the podcast and just enjoying making the episodes and speaking about the things that I need to speak about, and the people that listen to it are the people that are meant to listen to it, and that's just how it's going to be for a while. I hope that you can understand that whilst I'm kind of in a bit of this period of a transition. I'm hoping we're getting my leg on Tuesday coming, that there's going to be some more things to talk about when it comes to my recovery and getting back on track with walking and how I'm feeling about those things. But I just want to wait and see. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope that you join me the next time for the next episode that I have for whatever I want to share on that. I would really appreciate it if you would give me a follow on Instagram and TikTok at Cripple Chronicles Pod. Subscribe on YouTube, give the video a like, leave a comment about your thoughts about this episode, rate and review on audio platforms. If you can leave a comment on Spotify, please leave me a comment and let you know what you think. That also gives me an idea of how to figure out of how to see the comments on Spotify, so that would be really helpful. But yeah, have a lovely day, week, month, whenever I speak to you next. Yeah, love you guys. Speak to you later. Bye.